how to understand ourselves better. So, and I hear a lot of times like, oh, we shouldn't compare ourselves to other people, or and we shouldn't care about what others think. And I would argue it's the opposite. We should definitely care what other people think. We just have to be careful about who and what they're saying and what it means, right? So we're gonna have a look at that today. Oh, welcome back, Sai. Let's see. So, and I want this to be interactive. You have any questions while we go, then just ask them, because I'm gonna go through a part of the Unbreakable Mind program that I think none of you guys have gotten to yet, which is level 2, the mental resiliency part. Let's see if I can pop it up for you guys. And it's actually one of my favorite parts, because it really gives us a lot of understanding about ourselves. And if we can understand ourselves and we have the goal where we want to go, then chances are we can see the difference between who we are and who we want to become. And from that, we can map out the path, right? So we know where we want to go, we know where we are, and we can map out the path. And that means we don't have to focus so much on our past, our inner child, or whatever you want to call it. We can instead just focus on where we want to go, which means we don't need a lot of understanding of why we are the way we are, and we can focus our efforts on becoming who we want to become. Make sense? Okay. Perfect. So that's one of the core components of Unbreakable Mind, right? You'll recognize this because you've done this before. So I'm going to
Yep.
give you a little tool here. Let's see if I can press the wrong button, which rarely happens. But here we go. So let's see. I think none of you have been here, right? Level 2, and understand yourself through contrast. You're not there yet? All right. Okay. Well, this will be really good, I think. So I'm going to actually do this one first. So everybody knows here about Simba, right? You know about the story about the Lion King. Have you seen the Lion King movie? I assume both of you have. And also the people on the YouTube stream
Yes.
have probably seen that too. Yeah. So Simba was born from greatness, right? He was supposed to be the future king. He was this celebrated little cub. You remember the epic scene where he's being held up in front of the lion cliff or whatever it's called, and everyone's like, "That dude is the king." You know who he was, or at least they thought he did, right? He even sang that song, like, "I just can't wait to be king" song, and everything was fun. Leadership was fun. Courage just came natural to him because he didn't really have any difficulties, right? And then Mufasa dies, which is his dad. And then he has this horrible uncle, I think it's his uncle, who manipulates him into believing that it was actually Simba's fault. So Simba, not being that as courageous as he thought, he just takes off, hides in the forest. He hides from the dangers, but most importantly, he kind of hides from himself, because before he had this vision, like who he wanted to become, he had this vision of becoming the king, right? But then when he had to step up, it was too much for him, and he had to take off. Okay. So he hides away there. He lives his Hakuna Matata life, right? And the Hakuna Matata life is what I see a lot around me today. So Hakuna Matata is basically avoiding everything that is difficult and just having this illusion that you can have the most streamlined way through life ever possible. So just avoid all the difficult things. And if you do that long enough, life which is going to be great. Which, first of all, it just isn't possible, right? We all know that life is going to throw crap in our face, and we're going to have to deal with it. So we can either prepare for those situations, or we can say, no, I'm just going to think positive thoughts and move around. Or as Simba did, she's going to hide in the bushes and expect nothing to happen. Because if you just hide from everything, you'll be fine, right? No. As we all know from the movie and from real life, that's not really how things work. But he has the fortunate thing to have this little monkey, Rafiki. You remember that? He's like the guy with the staff, right? He's this weird monkey that also is the wise coach. And he is like he is the perfect illusion or illustration of the tool we're going to practice today. And the tool we're going to practice today is Johari Window. And this will make sense very soon. Has anybody here worked with the Johari window before? No. It's a really cool thing. I learned this the first few weeks of my officer training. So it's stuck with me since, and it's something that I it will be really interesting. So let's go. So here's the thing, right? He this little monkey finds Simba and he just like smacks him with his with his stick, which is a cool move by the way. And then he takes him to the water, right? And the water in here is the symbol of reflection, because you can see yourself, right? So for Simba, this is the first time he can really see himself. So this is where we talked about before. We want to know where we are. We want to see ourselves. We want a reflection. We want to go to the water to see ourselves. And the exercise we're going to do today is very much like that. Go to the water to see ourselves. Right? So the interesting thing here is, right, that he now realized where he is, where he needs to go, and he realized that this better version of him, which in Simba's case is his own father. He wants to become as his own father, right? That's the ideal version. So he now realized, okay, this is me where I am right now. Here's where I want to be. And he sees the huge gap, right? And suddenly it all comes back to him. All the pain, anxiety, and doubt. He realized there's really no way to hide from this. You can't hide from the reflection. The question is just when the reflection is going to come to you, when you're going to see the water, right? So then he has this choice, right? Okay, I can either stay here and hide from everything, and pain and suffering will just catch up to me, or I can go face it head on. And this relates to a bunch of interesting things, because as we've talked about, when we've done the Unbreakable Mind strength trainings, we talk about the unknown. We talk about the unknown being the scariest thing we have. Like there's nothing more scary than the things we cannot see or touch or understand, right? That's the scariest thing. And the scariest thing are the unknown. So by dealing with things, we approach the unknown. We get to see what the unknown is. We get to make it tangible. It's even so interesting, and I learned this just recently, is that if you have scary dreams, or actually like this, if you have kids, or you've been a kid, and you had nightmares, like you had this little horrible man hiding under, what's it called, under your bed, like what's the advice you give to that kid? What do you tell your kid who says there's a scary thing under the bed? What would you guys say?
You get a spray bottle with water in it, and you say it's monster anti-monster spray, and it's a water bottle with a spray with
I love
water
that.
in it. And you get the kid to spray the water underneath
Yeah,
the bed, and they say,
yeah,
"Go away, monster!" when they spray the water underneath the bed, and their
yeah,
brain says, "The monster's gone because I did something."
yeah, yeah, right. But and the
It
beautiful here
works.
that you're mentioning, yeah, and the thing that you're doing is you're taking it from being like, oh, this scary thing that I can't see, and you're turning it into you're going to face it. You're going towards the monster to face it. And even if you have you only need a fake gun for fake monsters, and that's the beauty of it. So, but the important thing is if you face the monster, you realize what the weaknesses are, and then you can deal with it. So that's the big deal here. You have to face the monster, right? And so let's have a look at this. Who this Rafiki guy was, right? Or the tool that's called the Johari Window, which I now call Rafiki Window because it's such a good story. And it's basically going to tell us these four things. We're going to go to this water, this mirror, and then we're going to learn things about ourselves. And the fun thing is, like, without the mirror, you cannot really understand who you are, because your internal thoughts and the way you think you are is not really how you appear to other people. We all know that. We have all met people who feel, like, oh, I'm such a caring person, and then when you look at their actions, like, honestly, you're more of a douchebag, to be fair. So we need to go to the water to look in the mirror. And that's where this tool comes into place, because we divide our, let's say, our personality in like four spaces. So we can say we have this open thing, the open window, which is something that is known to me and it's known to others, right? We have the hidden window, the yellow one, which is known to me but unknown to others. This will be like your secrets, the things you that you know about yourself and know about your behavior, but others people would not know about you. And then you have your blind spots, and these are very interesting because they're unknown to you, but they're known to others. And here's the magic. Here's where we have the feedback. Here's where we must listen to other people, because otherwise we can't figure this thing out. It's just impossible, right? So when people tell you don't care about what other people think, don't listen to other people, I think that's really crappy advice. It's like super crappy, because we need to listen even to the people we don't like. We need to like think about what they said and be like, is there something in here that's useful? And sometimes it is useful, even if you hate that person. And sometimes it's just absolute dog crap and we throw it away. Right? But we shouldn't default to not listening, because that will turn us into this self-generating, I am who I think I am. And that is not always the case, at least if you care about other people, right? Like if you have this great idea, like, you know what, I want to be a good friend, but your friend thinks you suck, then you know what, you're probably not a good friend, right? It's just as simple as that. So that's why it's so important to get this feedback from other people, right? It's like in Unbreakable Mind, we believe in action over intention. Intention is great, but if it doesn't lead to the action, and if it isn't received the way they wanted it, then it isn't a good favor. Right? I hope this will make sense a little bit. So the last window, it's the things that are unknown to you and unknown to others. Nobody knows it yet, right? So if you now have this square or these windows, how would you like to, if you get to push them around, you got to make green bigger or yellow bigger or whatever, how would you like to change the shape of this?
Change its shape. Do you mean change the size of the different squares?
Exactly. So maybe you want to have a more open window or a less open window, or like, how would you play around with this?
Reduce blind spots, and the hidden should be on a need to know according to what type of circle your circle's a bad word. According to what circle people are in, I don't know what other word to use. Different people have a different need to know. So what may be hidden to some people won't be hidden to others. But blind spots aren't good to me no matter what.
What about you, Sky? What were you thinking here? Is there any like that you would like to expand on, or something that you want to make smaller? What are you thinking?
Yeah, like uh, I think I would prefer to make a Venn diagram out of it. Like if there is like something like all are interlinked, so I would try to rearrange it into a Venn diagram where it is intersecting, like which I know and which others doesn't know about me, like they don't know, and so I would try to make it as a Venn diagram.
Got it. I like that. I'm also a fan of the Venn diagram. So what I so let's say you are completely unaware of yourself. If you have like zero, you meet those people sometimes, right? So like, oh, I'm so good at this thing, or I'm so social, but when you look at them, you're like, no, you're definitely not. So they have very low self-awareness about themselves. How do you think their window would look like? What would it look like?
I think you have to keep them out of the Venn diagram because it looks different, and I don't know like where we can place it. Like it's uh, 1 minute, like
Yeah. So here's how I see it. If you have someone who is completely unaware of themselves, then they will have really big blind spots, right? So you
Mm-hmm.
could say that this red zone is known to others, but it's unknown to you. So that red zone will expand. It will be maybe 3 or 4 corners. I'll see if I can draw it over here in a little map. But the idea is that their blind spot is so big because they're unaware of themselves, right? Does that make sense? So I'm gonna see if I can open up another little screen here and we can play around with it a bit. Give me a second. So I'm gonna add in this here and then we can play around with it. So what do you guys see? Like, how could this tool help you in your guys' life? I want to hear what you're thinking now about this.
The relationship between the open and hidden is really going to be who you're speaking with, or what group that person fits into that you're speaking with, because uh, some, if it's a work person or a family person or a close friend, they may have more access to some information or stuff about you than other people. So there may be more openness with some people, and there may be more hiddenness with other, more hiddenness with acquaintances, and more
Yeah.
openness with people that you're more intimate with. Trying to figure out words for this.
So let's
Um,
say if we do this, let's say this is this is Mr. John, right? And his window looks something like this. He has a really big blind spot, and the other ones are kind of smaller. So there's a lot of things that are unknown to John and that are known to others. How do you think he will move around the world?
There'll be a lot of blundering around and awkwardness.
And the reason why I'm asking you and like putting you on the spot and trying to make examples of it is because one of the main ways to remember something, as far as I understand the science, is to create your own examples. Because every time I ask you a question now, like, what does this mean in your life? You have to use your brain and you have to think, and it's like hard, but that thinking helps you create examples and helps you solidify this thing in your brain, and it will become a memory. So
yes,
that's why I'm putting you on the spot and having you do it. Just so you, I'm not trying to pin you. I just want to make sure that we get the most here. Right? Hope that makes sense.
The only way
yes,
it would
like
look really awkward is if that person with the huge blind spots about themselves, is if they had a super a super gift in reading a crowd, and they could read the crowd so well that they met the crowd where the crowd was, even though they had their own blind spots. And that would be a
Yeah,
weird mix of abilities and weaknesses, but
yeah,
they
and
would
very uncommon, right?
balance each other off somehow.
But as you see here, like imagine you guys, this could be you if you don't ask questions. Like if we don't get that feedback from people, or if we're not good at reading people's faces, then chances are we are walking around like this. Like there are things that we're doing. I mean, obviously there are things that we're doing that everybody else notices about us that we don't. And the magic really happens when we take that feedback. If it's useful, if it's someone we trust and they're good at giving feedback, then we can take that and we can change our behavior to become the person we want to become, right? So that turns our blind spot window, makes it a little bit smaller. And then we realize, you know what? I really want to be the best friend I can be with my mom. But if everything I'm doing is being received by her as annoying or frustrating or not being the best friend, then it doesn't matter my intentions. It doesn't matter if like, oh, I just want this for you. Like, yeah, but if that person doesn't want that, it's like giving someone a puppy because you want them to be happy, but they are allergic and hate dogs. It's just the intent doesn't matter that much as the actual action, right?
Okay.
So that's what I'm trying to get to here. We if we can identify our blind spots, we can choose to change our behavior if we want to or not. But if we're unaware of it, it's really difficult. So I would say that's one of the big parts. Okay, let's play around with this a little bit more here. Oh wow, it's really chaos here now.
Yes.
What about the unknown window? Any thoughts about that?
That's why I went off on all my weird trips and did things in my 30s and 40s because I had so much crappiness stuff in my head. I decided the only way I was going to do anything with it was to put myself into doing things that were reasonably decent, safe things, but things that I wasn't accustomed to doing, and go out and do them and find out stuff. And that's what I chose to do for 15 plus years, close to 20 years. And it worked. And it's sort of what you're doing on a plan on purpose. It's not
Yes,
sort of, it is what you're doing on a plan on purpose on steroids.
exactly. And you have already cut to the conclusion here, because how do you figure out what is unknown to you, right? How do you know? How do you learn something about yourself? There's only two ways, and I think this is the main takeaway for me. There's only two ways to expand any of this. One, we have the inputs from others. We talk to people, we get feedback, we read their visuals, we see that you see their faces change when we say something, and we're like, oh, maybe that was not well received, right? That's a little bit of feedback. But the thing that we also need to do, and which is exactly like you're saying, the Unbreakable Mind program, it's to put ourselves in challenges, to put ourselves in new positions and try things. Because if we try things, right, you get to know things about yourself. You're like, oh wow, I really suck at this, or you know what, I'm actually really good. And the things that used to be hidden, they also expand. Because suddenly, well, you know what, I can actually do this thing, or I can't. Either way, I have a lesson about myself. And so the big thing here is like we need inputs from people, useful input, and we need to get like what we say, like real world examples of what we can do. Those are the two feedback streams. So it's internal feedback stream, like I did something and I learned something and I know something about myself. And there's an external, which is from other people, just listening to what they have to say. And that is how we play around with these windows. And that is with that information, we can make really good decisions. Because then we go back to this idea of, okay, here's who I am, and I'm learning more and more about myself. There are fewer and fewer things that are hidden. And here's where I want to go. This is Mufasa, right? The ideal character. Yeah. And this is where I want to go. And then you see that, wait, these are not overlapping. Or maybe they are like size Venn diagram. They're overlapping a little bit. But if they're too separated apart, then we got to do something. Because just like Simba, we can't just hide out and cruise through life hoping that everything's going to be fine because life will catch up to us. Right? That's just it. So I think that, just like you said, that's a really beautiful conclusion here. We need feedback from others and we need our own feedback, right? And it all comes from challenges. And the challenges comes from having tough conversations so we get to learn about ourselves, or having tough situations so we can go out there and learn from that experience. The idea of this came from when I ran my first ultra marathon. We have been running for I think 5 or 6 hours, which is, in a race like this, is just the beginning, right? You have 6 times more that to go. And this guy who was way more experienced than me, he stopped and he said, I think I'm gonna stop. I think I'm gonna quit. I'm like, dude, what do you mean? Like, and in that moment, I realized that was a question that I never had. Like, I had figured out beforehand that I would stop only when these 3 criteria happen. Right? And but I through him, I could understand a little bit about myself. I knew that, okay, wait, if he is like that and I don't relate to that at all, then I just learned something about myself. So it wasn't about him. Like, he could do whatever he wants with his life, but by looking at him and by comparing myself to him, I learned something about myself. And we see that a lot of times in life, right? We have someone who's achieved something or doing something, and then we realize, wait, I want to have that result, but I'm not doing those actions. And that's a good comparison, right? As long as we are fair. Because if you're trying to be, if you're trying to do a slam dunk being a basketball player, and you're the height that I am, like semi-midget, then it's just not a fair comparison. It's just way different, right? So you have to compare fairly. And that's why you probably won't compare yourself to Instagram, where everything bad is filtered out and only the good is left. But I do believe that we should listen to other people, and we should compare ourselves to other people. We just need to do it in a useful and healthy way. What are your thoughts on that?
To compare and figure out, either I don't want to get to where they are, so what am I going to change to not land where they are? Or I like where they are, how did they get there? I've spent 25 or 30 years choosing what I called my heroes and going up to them after choosing them and going, hey, how did you get there? Care to share? And I've got a good string of people, very good people from a varied collection of backgrounds, that shared how they got to where they are from a number of hard places. And they helped me get to where I am. If you don't compare, that means you've got to hard scrabble yourself up the first time, when there's been other people that have traveled a similar road, because there's only so many different ways a body can move. There's only so many different things a person can experience. Somebody else is going to experience something similar sometime. If we don't learn from somebody else, then we're going to be creating it from scratch ourselves. And it's going to take a lot more work, a lot more time, and a lot more pain and suffering, and a lot more energy.
100% agree. And it's a ridiculous statement to
Yes.
not listen to one or not. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, side.
Yes, like what, like whenever I try to compare like with anyone, like it actually makes me like even I want to compare with anyone and learn from them, like how their journey is and like what path they are going. But sometimes there are many people, according to my field, there are many people, like what perspective I see, like there are many people and I get confused sometimes, like if I'm comparing with the right person or there are many people to compare with, like I get confused in some time of point, like where I try to compare, and if I don't match that level of this peak what they are in, and sometimes I get demotivated, or sometimes even I get motivated, like when I reach there, like how their steps, like how they are putting their steps and trying to follow their steps, and it actually works sometimes, but sometimes I get confused, like whether whom to follow and whom to compare. That actually gets this thing, like little confusion of like what is the right way to compare, like
Yeah, I think that is an excellent question. And for me, so I grew up without a dad, right? So I didn't have that role model. But what I realized was a big benefit is that I didn't have a role model, so I got to go out into the world and pick behaviors. So I never had, like, when people ask me, "Oh, who was your role model when you were a kid?" I'm like, I don't know, but I do know there's a bunch of different characters in my life where I've taken good behaviors and I've made them into like this ideal version. So there's not just one person, right? Because we all have our flaws. We're all pieces of shit sometimes. That's just how it works. So I take the best. So like my friend Bill, for example, extremely good at being a great host. He's always been like super welcoming and is amazing at that. So I take that from him, right? So I think the comparison is just to, I think the comparison for me would be to just like, okay, like you would do in science, like you do in science, right? If you compare apples to apples and not apples to pears. So like, hey, I can't compare my business to someone who has done this for 10 years and who has, a millions of followers. Like when they send an email, different things happen. When I send an email, it's crickets, right? So that would be a fair comparison. But what I can do is say, oh wait, this person, they are active every week, they do the actions every week, and they have 24 hours in a day. I also have 24 hours in a day, so maybe I can do the actions, right? So I think I compare myself a lot, now that I mention it, with the actions rather than the results. Like I wouldn't compare myself to they already have this or they are good at this, but I can compare myself to the effort or to the input, and then maybe I'll get a similar outcome.
yes.
So that's how I'm thinking about it. How does that sound to you?
Yes, actually, I didn't think in this way, and I think this is the best way like I can find, because when we try to take the actions and try to take the behavior, that can actually lead to, like it may lead to somewhere, but it will lead to some positive way because their behaviors are taking them to the result. So I think following the behavior is the right part, that it is better than comparing to someone than taking their behaviors and action and implementing in our life.
And I think this makes a lot of sense because you can also like, okay, I want to be like, you look at an Olympic athlete, right? And you look at them and you're like, okay, wow, they have a gold medal in whatever swimming. Okay, so I I can't have that gold medal because they got it. That's already passed. But I can do the swimming. I can show up for practice every day, and I can do the best I can with the resources I have. And that's what they did. The resources might be different, but they did the best with the resources they have. And I'm going to do the best with the resources I have. So I think that is a good behavior to mirror or mimic, as far as I think. Well, great question. I love that one. That was a good. I'm going to take that one with me. Okay, so now
Yes,
I have
even
a
I'll
little.
follow the.
Yeah, so now I have
Yes,
a
I'll
little
follow
game
this.
for you, right? Oh, sorry. Yeah, go for it. Tell me.
Yes, yes. Like I'll follow this, and I'll try to take the actions and try to implement it.
I'm going to do the same. Great question. And it gave me clarity as well. So Okay, since we are in Unbreakable Mind and everything is about challenges and actually doing stuff, we're always going to do something. So what I want you to do now is you're going to draw on a piece of paper these 4 squares. So just like a line like this. And then you're going to write down whatever it says in here. So it's going to look here. And then let's see here. All right, and then the next thing you're basically going to do is I want you to write down what it says in these different things. Oh, sorry, I'm going to do this. So you want to make sure that you have written these down so you remember them, because in a while you'll be like, I can't remember which one was which. So, and then you're going to start collecting things in all of these things, right? So you're going to write down some of the things that are known to you and known to others, and then known to you, unknown to others. So little secrets. So you better keep these notes secret. And then obviously this one is hard to fill out because it's unknown to you and it's unknown to others. But it can be such as, it will be a lot of your goals will end up in this bucket. So let's say, I want to be able to do, let's something simple. I just want to get this grade, or I want to get this, like for you, Sai, right? I want to get this score on my test. Like, I don't know if you can do it. You don't know if you can do it because you haven't done it yet, right? So that will pop into this bucket. Or like the things that you don't know, the skills you don't have, right? So you want to pop that in there. And here, this one is the most exciting one, the blind spot, because here you're going to put in the things that are unknown to you, that are valuable, and that other people know. And this will be turned into our next exercise that was down here. So just very quickly, draw on a piece of paper these 4 squares. So you have that somewhere to go back to later. And you can also reverse engineer this. So let's say you're going like on an interview and you realize there are things that are known to you that are unknown to the people who's listening to you. So then you're going to take the stuff that's in here and you're going to put it in the open. So like, okay, if you're going on an interview or whatever, and you want them to know things about you, you got to show it to them, right? So you expand your open window. So in relationship to this person who I want them to hire me, then if they don't know this, they won't have the correct information and they can make a good decision. So I need to move things from the hidden into the open. And you could also reverse engineer it and say, hey, there are things here that I don't want them to know about me because those things require more explanation. And maybe there's not time during a 50-minute call or whatever. So I want to put those in the unknown to others, right? So you can move around and play around in everyday life, in relationships. Right? Okay, have you written that thing down now? You don't have to fill it out, just to have the outline. Okay, good. Then we're going to go to the most important exercise related to today, which will be here. This one. We're going to go into the people we have in our lives, and we're going to ask them about information. So we're going to minimize our blind spot and open and add more to the things we know about ourselves. So we're going to find someone we trust. And this is the key thing here, right? It's got to be someone we trust that they will give us valuable information. Right? So if we don't trust them, it's not sure that we can make a good decision based on what they're saying. So like if you're tracking analytics on your website and you don't trust the data coming in, then you can't make good decisions. So this will be your data point, right? So we want to pick a good source of information. So this could be someone you trust or someone you value to give you honest feedback. And it's as simple as that. And if you don't know what to ask, you can go with a generalized question like this, like, what's something you see in me that I might not see in myself? It's a really good start. And once they say something, you start to dig a little bit deeper and you start to realize, oh, wow, I didn't know about that about myself. And you have a conversation. And for everything they tell you, you learn more about yourself. And even if you don't agree, even if you think what they're saying are stupid or incorrect, at least you'll realize that, you know what? That's their perspective of me. And then you can match their perspective of you with who you want to be. And then you can say, there's a difference and I want to change it. And then you say, it's too much work right now. I don't have the time. That's fine. You don't have to figure everything out now. And you can say, you know what, this is a behavior that I want to improve. And thank you so much for helping me with this. But this is, I would encourage you to use this as much as you can and ask for good feedback from people you trust. And for me, conversation is higher than, if you trust the person, then they will give you good, useful information. Because if you're trying to read body language, there might be misinterpretations. You might make it more complicated than it needs to be. And the beautiful thing is when they give you that feedback and they realize, oh, you weren't offended. You didn't say, no, that's incorrect. And you just listened. Then that relationship will increase and will be much stronger. So this is incredibly powerful when you want to build that team arena. And no matter how pissed off you get or how stupid you think they are, just take it in, process it, and say thank you. That is, I promise you, that's a golden key for good relationships in many ways.
Okay.
How does that sound? Are
Doable.
you willing to try this? Yeah. Do you have someone on your mind that you will do this with already? So on your piece of paper, I would love for you to write down who you're going to ask. You don't have to tell me, but to take the next step, you need someone to ask this.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Great. And then once you've done that, this is the beautiful part after. When you've done that, you do a classic after-action review or debrief, as we do in the community. And just enjoy that information you've got and see like, oh, what happened? It might be things that you're like, oh, this wasn't flattering, but then you can change it so you can improve it. Or it was flattering and you're like super excited about that. So either way, it's a win-win. You get the result that you wanted, or you get the lessons that you needed. Just good stuff overall. So what I showed you now was part of the level 2 mental resilience. It's one of the deals where we figure out who you are. So once you guys get to level 2, you go in detail of all about this stuff. And as you can see, there's tons of stuff here. You have the find your direction, where we set the goal or direction for our lives. With developmental strength and deeper level, with your breath work, intuition. There's so much gold in here. So I'm excited about you guys getting to that point. And I think, Robin, you're probably pretty clear, pretty ready to go here soon. Okay, cool. That was my little thing today. I'm going to stop the recording, and then I would just love to hear your guys' thoughts. For you guys who are now watching from other pages, the most important thing you need to do now is to keep challenging yourself. Get those lessons.